Hello, I am Marwan Miranda, and this is my TOK Exhibition presentation, and I am a senior in IB. I chose number 29 to prompt who owns knowledge. Specifically, I'm looking into the methods that people use to gain knowledge, so that's even more specific. When considering these methods, it's important to consider that language, memory, imagination, intuition, faith, reason, emotion, and sense perception play a role in the way that we acquire knowledge as living creatures, not just humans. Okay, object number 1 would be Socrates. Born in Athens, Greece, Socrates is one of the most prominent philosophers in history and the chief inspiration for Western philosophy. He deeply believed that humans had an innate sense of morals and positive attributes, among other things, that were placed in the soul by divine means. Plato, another philosopher, further expanded upon this, and this philosophy is referred to as innatism. In essence, his beliefs support the notion that instincts, seemingly present since birth, even if not fully understood by the individual who they serve, are considered as possessing knowledge. So even these instincts, having them, this sort of innate knowledge is still considered owning knowledge. As Socrates himself was a controversial figure in his lifetime, this philosophy has been still widely debated and challenged, notably by Enlightenment thinker John Locke, who claimed that humans cannot own knowledge that they are not aware of. This philosophy indicates that experiences allow an individual, the philosophy of innatism, indicates that experiences often allow an individual to access the innate knowledge. So if they weren't aware of it before, the experiences that they go through help them unlock more of that and actually have access to that. Even if it's not the source of the knowledge themselves, the experiences aren't. As such, knowledge is pre-owned, even if the means to access and comprehend it fully lie elsewhere. The implication that humans have untaught, inherent knowledge calls into question which factors are key players in childhood development. So, for example, psychological nativism is like a psychological expansion of this belief of innatism, encapsulates the philosophy of innatism, especially in regards to a priori knowledge and its connection to human cognition. Language is among the primary arguments for this belief that we have stored knowledge, notably utilized by Noam Chomsky, the father of modern linguistics. His studies of children's ability to absorb and comprehend abstract grammar laws, even if not directly taught them or even understood fully, led to what he termed universal grammar. This implies that nativist beliefs, even when frequently challenged by empiricists who believe that you can only gain knowledge through experiences, have weight. So these arguments do have substance behind them, especially when considering its role in the development of psycholinguistics in similar fields in psychology and elsewhere. And then the next object would be my dog, Rambo. He's currently outside, but here's a photo of him for proof. Okay, Rambo, born in May of 2020, is a year and a 7-month-old German Shepherd adopted by my family last July. Allegedly, he was a second in command among his siblings, so do with that what you will. With a manic look in his eye, Rambo loves to chase after balls and make quick work of any toy given to him. Exposed to water initially and cautiously as a puppy in an attempt to foster a love of swimming, Rambo shortly found out that he detests swimming and actually tends to avoid it in general, pools or and only prefers water really in his bowl. As a curious 2-month-old puppy, Rambo had no experience with playing in a body of water swimming, and as such was initially receptive to the idea. So he didn't really understand what a pool was to begin with, so he didn't know how to feel about it at first. However, he only acquired knowledge of the sensation and the feelings related to it afterwards, once he was actually immersed in it. This supports the notion that a living being can also own knowledge once they actually engage with it. So if they aren't born with it, then if they engage with it, that's also considered owning knowledge. Rambo continues to demonstrate conscious awareness of this knowledge by treading carefully around the boundaries of the pool and refusing to go in it even to retrieve a toy ball. Since then, like my other dog, he disliked the idea of interacting with sprinklers and puddles of water, even when he has never really interacted with them before fully or immersed himself in them just on the idea that they're related to the water and the experiences he had in the past. This implies that the manner in which information is processed and stored or owned in a living being relies on various factors such as senses, cognitive ability, environment, perspective, and personal values. Furthermore, two beings that have a similar experience will often receive similar knowledge of it, but due to the different levels of comprehension and conscious awareness of it, may vary among them due to experience and wisdom, among other factors. So, for example, Rambo, my dog, and I are not really too interested in swimming, largely due to the physical sensation. I don't really like the feel of it, so neither does my dog. However, as a dog, Rambo perceives it as a threat more and refuses to enter the pool area even when he wants to play with my family while inside it. And he'll bark from the edge of it, but he won't actually want to go in it. Meanwhile, I understand that the pool is mostly harmless, not a threat per se. And I can suspend my disinterest in swimming if it means spending some time with my family, even if it's unpleasant. The sensation isn't exactly the comfortable one. So yeah. And then the third object, well, I wouldn't refer to as an object, but a teacher you may know, Mr. Scott, theory of knowledge. Mr. Scott, also known as Joe Scott, teaches zero-period theory of knowledge as part of the IB curriculum at Centennial High School. Additionally, he teaches oceanography and astronomy. To pursue higher education, he attended Cal State Fullerton and studied kinesiology. I can't pronounce that right. Kinesiology. Like many other college students, it was vital to learn from professors who, more often than not, have had first-hand experience in the field and research from it, which they would pass on to their students. So in college, it is unlikely that the students themselves will constantly engage with their respective fields firsthand and full-time, because they went there to learn, but not necessarily, it's not a full-time job for them yet, for the most part. In order to grasp a deep understanding of the subject, they pay tuition and inherit knowledge from those who have immersed themselves in the field or studied it intensively themselves for several years. As such, Mr. Scott, like many other students, began to own knowledge that was neither innate, so he didn't exactly have this knowledge, or wasn't necessarily from firsthand in particular, but instead it was secondhand knowledge passed on from another person. And even further than that, it could be third-generation knowledge, fourth-hand knowledge, etc. The cycle continues now that Mr. Scott himself is a teacher and is passing on the knowledge that he learned onto younger generations. This implies that for the most part, education systems are primarily focused on imparting third or second-hand knowledge, or even beyond that. Seemingly, the goal is for students to eventually seek out knowledge firsthand, impart what they learned onto other students as to become teachers, for example, or even to function and contribute to society based on what they have learned. So if they're not imparting knowledge on others necessarily, or even launching into fields to explore it themselves, then they're putting what they learned into businesses that have been already established, like accounting. They just use the knowledge they have, and they just use it instead of branching out necessarily experimental, etc. This calls into question whether students technically have ownership of the original knowledge acquired firsthand, considering that it has been passed down through secondhand sources, has been through many hands, it's been voiced, it's been written down, but still this is called into question. Although the finer minute details may be altered, so although it won't be exactly word of mouth, think of the game Telephone, for example, where the initial message may be different from the final message due to simple miscommunication, etc., or just things lost in translation. It can be argued that as long as the core information is retained, the students technically own this knowledge. So then, as a final point, what we learned here is that who owns knowledge per se, and who meaning all living creatures. Someone who has innate knowledge owns knowledge. Someone who has first-hand knowledge owns knowledge. And someone who has second-hand, third-hand, or fourth knowledge, etc., passed on through an intermediary, or etc., also owns knowledge. So these three own knowledge. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you.